Welcome to a behind-the-scenes conversation with our 2023 Payroll Man and Woman of the Year. I'm your host, Patricia Fripp. On your behalf, I'll be asking the questions you want the answers to. Congratulations and welcome to Marcela McCarthy and Michael Schoelles. Marcela, how did your career begin?
In high school, we had a recruitment day for those students who did not plan on going to college. I had already taken many business courses and was proficient with business machines. That meant, in that day, a typewriter, copier, calculator, and key punch. A company in Brisbane, California called VWR Scientific hired me. The CFO who interviewed me made me sit at his desk as he did not believe that an 18-year-old could possibly do the job in the corporate finance department. Much to his amazement, he said, "How can you use a calculator faster and better than our accountants?" 9 months later, a payroll job opened that paid 25 cents more an hour, and I was hired. At the same time, I was planning my wedding. As soon as the honeymoon was over, my 45-year career in payroll began. In those days, everything we did was manual. 10 years later, I was hired at the Sharper Image in my first manager's position. This was when technology was becoming an important part of payroll, and when I implemented my first change in payroll systems. That was a really good experience. 4 years later, American President Lines recruited me to become their payroll manager. And a year after, they decided they were moving their financial services to Memphis, Tennessee. My husband said, "Let's go. We're young. Let's make a change." Along with our 2 young children, we traveled to Memphis, where I set up a whole new payroll department and changed another payroll system. We also put in their first electronic timekeeping system. Although professionally it was a good move, after a while we decided to move back to the Bay Area, especially when my next opportunity arose. My next role was payroll director of McKesson. The next 19 years were very enjoyable and strong relationships were built. Technology played a much bigger and important part of business lives.
Michael, let's go back to the beginning of your career.
When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I had worked for United Artists Theater Circuit in a local movie theater chain and worked up to an assistant manager role, which meant I was working nights and weekends. While attending college, it was a great option because I could work around school and work. The company's payroll department was local, just two towns over from where I lived at the time, and I would usually drop our payroll off in person. This not only saved the company the cost of an overnight package, it bought me some additional time to complete it as well. One Saturday, when I was dropping off my payroll, I asked, "By the way, do you guys need any help? I'd love to get a 9-to-5 job." I was excited to hear, "I think so. Give us a call on Monday." That's when I heard, "You don't really know anything about payroll, but you do know the business." By the end of the week, my career in payroll had begun. My nights and weekends were now my own. In the 90s, I relocated to Colorado, then Texas, and then back to Colorado through various decentralizing, regionalizing, and then decentralizing and centralizing endeavors. After my daughter was born, we decided it was time to move back to New Jersey. So when she was 1, we moved back to New Jersey, where I was reunited with my former boss from United Artists, when she hired me at Simon & Schuster, which was soon to become Pearson Education. There I worked my way into the payroll manager's role, ultimately became a director at Clean Harbors, and now payroll director at Bright Horizons for the last 6 years.
Marcela, you've always been committed to education. Tell us what you did at McKesson.
I'm an advocate of educating payroll professionals. 50% of the team earned their CPP. Every week, we conducted 2-hour educational sessions to make sure that they had skin in the game 1 hour was of their own time. This result was that a budget provided for at least 5 of our team to attend Congress every year. Only CPPs could go. We also got everyone involved in the San Francisco chapter. While in Memphis, I had been chapter president. In San Francisco, I felt it was important to encourage my team to be on the board other than myself. At McKesson, based on our dedication to education and leadership, our leadership supported my participation in APA, now PAO. As you can imagine, I was thrilled to be invited to join the National Speakers Bureau.
Michael, how did you get involved in PAO?
I had been in payroll since 1988 and had attended some APA, now payroll conferences, such as Best Practices and Congress, usually as a guest, since we only had one membership for the entire team to use. In 2001, I had taken and passed the CPP exam first time out. Next, I got involved at the local chapter level by attending meetings. In 2007, at a chapter meeting, they asked, "Is anybody interested in joining the board?" I went home, mentioned it to my wife Lisa, and she had encouraged me to get involved. So I replied, "Okay," went to the meeting. I figured I'll start out as a government liaison officer or a webmaster, but instead heard we've got 2 people who want to be co-presidents, but don't like to do public speaking. They will do most of the behind-the-scenes work as co-vice presidents. Would you be president? I asked what that entailed, and they said, "You're the face of the chapter and would do all of the speaking at meetings and lead the group." So I left that meeting as president of the New Jersey chapter and stayed in that role for 8 years till we moved from New Jersey up to the Boston area.
That's such a great story. Marcela, tell us about your next big turning point.
My next big decision was when McKesson decided to move our corporate headquarters to Dallas. By then, we had grandchildren. We had always had great relationships with our children, and as soon as we had our first grandchild, my husband retired. My husband said, "This time, let's not go. We're not young anymore. Let's enjoy our family." The advantage of being involved in PAO is when others know you are available, opportunities come your way. William Sonoma asks, "Would you like a director position?" I was perfect timing and where I ended up my career. When I was 54 years old and at the top of my bucket list was to finish my degree, Kaplan University offered online classes. Because of my experience and several wonderful worded letters from Jim Madlock and those from my employers, I received credit for 7 classes. Imagine my pride in 2017. I walked the stage in Chicago to receive my well-earned diploma. It was made much more easier because of PAO's education and opportunity to contribute. Recently, D. Bird asked me to speak for the Memphis chapter. That was my last speaking engagement. Now that is full circle.
Well, congratulations. And do you remember when you first got involved in PAO, Marcela?
My involvement in PAO was when I attended my first Congress in San Francisco in the 80s. From there, I joined the SPLTF Best Practices Committee and co-founded the Manufacturing Committee. For at least 12 years, I was on the board of the California Payroll Conference. Additionally, I had the pleasure of being asked to be on the Board of Advisors, as well as serve as Vice President of PAO.
Michael, when did your local contribution move to national?
Dan Maddox had attended one of our National Payroll Week celebrations. We were lucky enough to have ADP as our sponsor for our meetings, and it was that year that Regina Lee was retiring. So I was driving Dan back to the hotel after the meeting, and he turned and asked, "Mike, how do we get you more involved at the national level?" I said I'd love to get more involved at the national level, but wasn't sure what the path was. So he suggested I reach out to the incoming president at the time, Barbara Youngman, and copy him, requesting consideration for the Board of Advisors. I did as he suggested and joined the Board of Advisors that year. Previously, I had been involved in the National Speakers Bureau and a Congress speaker, and from there, joined several subcommittees and then became the co-chair of the Best Practices Subcommittee.
The lesson is be aware of being locked in a car with Dan Maddox.
Yes, he will get you to commit to anything.
Yes, he's very persuasive. Marcela, tell us one of your amusing memories.
A gentleman was really upset because he was going to not to get a tax return. We told him, you filed exempt from taxes. That means that no taxes were coming out of your paycheck. You didn't put anything in, so you can't get anything back. He replied, somebody still owes me $300. I get that every year. This only proves many people who we pay don't understand the tax system.
You are correct. And Michael, what's amused you?
A couple stories that come to mind is, back in the early 90s, I was changing from one payroll system to another. I had raised a concern with all of the technical folks and consultants regarding the hard disk size, and I was told I would never need more than a 20 megabyte hard drive to do this. We were doing our loads, and lo and behold, at 85%, the drive was full and crashed. In those days, we had to call a computer tech guy out. Today, I have more computing power on my wrist than I did back then. One of my favorite check replacement stories is when a new employee was so proud of his first paycheck. He raced home to show his pet bird. Obviously impressed, it enthusiastically pecked away at the edges. Imagine his embarrassment telling me, the bank says my check is invalid, as my bird has pecked off the routing numbers.
I can't imagine that somebody's bird would be the most special person to show the proud moments to. Anyway, Marcela, what are you most proud of, and what advice would you give to another PAYO member?
Reflecting back, I think the ability and opportunity to teach, to give knowledge to new people in payroll. I feel very proud to be able to give back so that others could grow in their careers as I did. My advice is get as much education as possible. I have always said you can outsource process, but you cannot outsource accountability. Also, I feel that my involvement in PAYO gave me education, collaboration, and friendships. My advice is get involved. You will gain more than you give.
Thank you. And Michael, what advice do you give to newer PAYO members and also the more seasoned?
I would suggest doing what I did. Get involved at the local level. With that confidence and experience, then you can step up into the national level. Join some of the committees, become involved, become more visible. Your skills develop as you go. Remember my terrified vice presidents who would do all the work as long as they didn't have to speak? They're now great speakers and enjoy it as much as I do. For my more seasoned friends, keep moving with the times. Technology has transformed how we work. Now there's AI, automation, all sorts of things. When you have over 30 years experience, your wisdom is in many ways more valuable than the technology, though we need both technology and the wisdom of experience. Those of us who have loved our industry and watched it grow and evolve must engage and encourage our younger members. Regular check-ins, stretch assignments, and feedback on how they are doing. Remember, our younger members have a lot to teach us as well.
Marcela, now you've said goodbye to your 45-year career. What are you looking forward to?
One day a week, I volunteer to help my daughter, who is a teacher of a kindergarten class. We will see if my skills educating payroll professionals works on 5-year-olds.
I am confident your skills will win out. Michael, what do you feel is your greatest contribution?
There's been many great moments. My favorites involve speaking at Congress and every opportunity to teach. It is also only appropriate that I say thank you to my wife. Without her constant support and encouragement, it would not have been possible for me to be as involved in Payo. She has been my rock and has encouraged me to do things I might not have otherwise done.
Michael and Marcela, on behalf of all your payroll colleagues and the leadership of Payroll Org, congratulations and thank you for your contributions and setting such a great example to the rest of us.